Hey, welcome back to the Prospecting Show. This is episode 25, part 4 of 6, Technology in Healthcare with Dr. Matthew Demond. As a summary for this episode, new technology exists to make our lives easier. The whole goal here is to improve your soft skills so that you can use the technology with those skills to elevate the ROI and make your life easier while delivering something of great value to your customers. So in my experience in practice, I saw, my short time, I was seeing hundreds and hundreds of patients per week, right? And that's not to say that it's any better or worse, but the problem you get with that kind of volume, in my opinion, with one provider is documentation. So you only have so much time, doesn't matter what it is. And as you see more patients, what in my practice and where I was working, the thing that suffered was documentation. Because at the end of the day, we're not going to say, I'm going to do less to the patient. I'm just going to do probably a little bit less on the documentation side. And maybe that's a personal choice that I decided that's the way it was going to be. But with the fixed amount of time, there's only so much documentation that could be done. So where do you see technology actually helping that, right? We have these great EHR system and EMR systems right now. They have lots of great macros and lots of technology in them, and they're actually decent compared to what was available 20 years ago. How is technology actually going to make that process better so that the practitioners can spend more time with the patients? What's going to actually change, like the actual change in those systems coming up? What do you think it's going to be?
Okay, so first, just something that you said reminded me of a quote by Hank Kragenhoff, which is "Do as little as necessary, not as much as possible."
Right, yes.
So let's let's do what's required for our patients, not as much as we possibly can for them. And I think, as we that's really the focus of what technology does for us, right? It's not here's technology and let's do as much as we possibly can with it. It's technology is meant to be utilized so that we can do less, but still having the same or better result.
Right. And that's definitely true. But what are those things that can be implemented with technology in your mind that could make the result the same, but less work for the provider? What kind of things would that look like?
Yeah. So like you already mentioned macros, and for those who might not know what a macro is, macros are, basically like a button that you click that'll pre-populate a sentence.
Right.
And, as you develop better macros, that's less clicking and ultimately less time that you have to do with, things like documentation. There's also other options out there. Like there's what is that? Like dictation.
Yep.
Devices. You can just speak and talk about it. And
right. Like a Dragon Naturally Speaking or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think to answer your question, what ultimately has to happen is, we need to streamline the process and find out what's ultimately the most important things when it comes to treating our patients, and just in healthcare in general. We'll always obviously need to know what our patient's name is. What conditions we're treating. What services we're providing them and the specific quantities of those services. So there's inherent minimal standards and things that need to be there. And I think that as we move forward, what we will see is some of the fluff, so to speak, being shaved off of it. A lot of documentation, that I've seen looks bad because it maybe is just bullet points of here's the highlights, but it's not necessarily bad because it's still minimal. It's just not good or great because it's not in a narrative format, or it doesn't meet our personal needs of telling a nice story of that patient, kind of with that compassion and empathy piece.
And the syntax is really important too, right? The way that you kind of format, and that's interesting because one of our companies that we started, me and my partner Keith, we basically started this company called Syntax, and it actually started with that exact idea, was that you could write a note with whatever's in it. If you took the last paragraph and put it first and the second paragraph and put it third, you'd have a totally different story.
Mm-hmm.
And so our whole business is based around, how do we tell that story properly so that people can understand this happened, then this happened, and this happened, right? And to flip that into where I think it's going to go, one of the biggest up and coming technologies right now is voice. And with Alexa, and she's probably going to start talking to us here, but there's so many great opportunities to use voice and video that I think you're going to see in practice as two major things long term. One, patient intakes are going to be recorded and encrypted, both on the video and the audio side. And ultimately, the data is going to be using that new technology of voice recognition to help make less work for the doctors, but also have better trackability of the patients. And the reason I say that is because when you read a note of something another provider did, I don't care how good the note is or how good of a clinician you are, you have no idea really what they did. You can see, yeah, we adjusted this or we adjusted that or we did this rehab exercise or we did this modality, but you don't really know what happened. All you can do is read it, right? And at the end of the day, the people who are in the insurance companies who are reading a lot of these notes and determining care and all that don't even have the aptitude in the clinical setting for that service. So you don't have a chiropractor reading chiropractic notes for the most part in insurance companies. So my problem with that is if you write down notes and someone's interpreting who doesn't really understand what you did and then is reimbursing based on that, that's where the problem actually comes in. So I think in technology, I think voice and video are going to be big up and coming. What do you think about that?
I think it's a solid idea, yeah. I mean, honestly, beyond the dictation, elements, I've never really, considered, the different kinds of technologies, much like the Alexas and such are, as it could become more commonplace in healthcare. There is, there has been a little bit of a push for like telemedicine.
Yes.
And we are starting to see some of these things remotely and for certain conditions. You almost want to say like, well, why not? There's
right.
Doctors are utilizing video systems and,
right.
there are, online phone conversations happening for, diagnostic and treatment purposes. So
right.
Yeah, what is that next evolution look like and where does it go? Absolutely. Why not?
Right. And I think that's where people are under leveraging some of the opportunities that exist, right? We have these great social platforms, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And if someone looked at that today, they kind of take it for granted because they don't understand how complex that concept really was, right? Until you look back and say, well, in on the .com bubble, we're just happy to send an email to somebody who was in a different location, right? Now we're taking these systems and having such complex enterprise kind of packages that I think healthcare is going to be totally different in 10 to 15 years if we can demonstrate that it helps the provider, the patient, and the insurance company. Because at the end of the day, it's always this juggling of those three things, right? How does it help the patient? Does it save them money or save them time? How does it help the provider? And ultimately, does it cost the insurance company less to deliver more? Kind of what you're talking about, right? So do you think that insurance companies will ever get involved with the educational process of providers long term? Do you think they will start being more integrated with that?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think so.
Okay.
That's just not what I think their priority is. Yeah, no.
No, okay. Where do you see the insurance companies moving towards? Do you see any difference in their models long term?
So I would say one of the current trends that a lot of people tend to bring to the table about insurance company is moving like this fee for service model and moving more for this kind of like bundled services where a person presents with an issue and you get reimbursed appropriately just based more on that issue and what needs to happen with it rather than for the different fees and fees for the different services that you provide.
Right.
So as you know, in a chiropractic office, everything that we do tends to be itemized.
Yes, very much
we
so.
We did an adjustment and here's some taping and here's some exercise and here's some passive modalities like stim, ultrasound, laser. We did this education. Oh, there's this consulting code because we talked about MRI findings.
Right.
And the list goes on. And then we submit this long chain of numbers to an insurance provider who looks at it and says, oh, you're a chiropractor, thanks but no thanks.
Right.
we're going to deny everything because that, like, for whatever reason they have in the background is saying like, yep, we're just not going to reimburse it.
Right.
But then you go like, but I did all this stuff because it was necessary as part of their care, and my patient is getting better in 3 visits. And physician A gets their patient resolved in 3 visits, where physician B would get that same patient resolved in 30.
Right.
When you do a fee-for-service model and you're reimbursing practitioners based on the services that they provide and the number of times they provide it, you're almost incentivizing people to be bad doctors. The more often you come and see me, the more money I make, and the more services I have to provide you, the more money I make. Boy, wouldn't it be a novel idea if we could actually give our patients the care that they not only deserve, but certainly that's what they needed.
Yeah.
Again, do as little as necessary, not as much as possible.
Right.
And and if and when you do it in a right way, they actually get better in 3 visits. Now, should the practitioner not be appropriately compensated for being able to get them out of the medical system faster than the one who ended up having them around for 6 months? I think so. And so I think right now the landscape is insurance companies are looking for meaningful ways in which to look at that attribute and then reimburse people in an appropriate manner.